No room for Russia after the EU meets in Brussels. France and Germany say it's time to bring Moscow in from the cold, but others argue that would be rewarding Putin for bad behavior. I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is the EU's relationship with Russia. Well, there are a few things to take away from last week's EU summit, and one is just how divided the bloc has become, especially in relation to Russia. Prior to the meeting, France and Germany suggested the EU needed to once again engage with the Kremlin. But that proposal met fierce resistance, particularly from Poland and the Baltic states. And Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Moravietski slammed the plan, saying it would be a reward for Russia's aggressive policies. Relations between Moscow and Brussels hit a new low in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea. The EU imposed sanctions and suspended all direct talks. The hope was that Russia would change its behavior, but is that strategy working? In recent years, Moscow has been accused of everything from meddling in elections to high-profile cyber attacks and even poisoning its critics. German Chancellor Angela Merkel thinks a new approach is required just before heading to what was likely her final EU summit as head of state. This is what she had to say.
In my opinion, we as the European Union must also seek direct contact with Russia and the Russian president. It is not enough for the US President Joe Biden to talk to the Russian president. I very much welcome that, but the EU must also create forums for dialogue. There won't be any other way to solve the conflicts.
So is it time for the EU to reset relations with Russia? To discuss that, I'm joined from Warsaw by Dominik Tarczynski. He's a member of Poland's ruling party and an MEP for the European Conservatives and Reformists group. From Moscow is Andrey Kortunov, Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council. And in Milan is Eleonora Tafuro Ambrosetti, a research fellow focusing on Russia and the Caucasus at the Italian Institute for International Political Studies. Thanks all so much for being with us. Dominik, I'll start with you. Engaging with Putin's Russia is simply a no-go for you. Why?
Well, obviously, because when you are trying to have a dialogue, you have to have a partner to have a dialogue. Putin at the moment is not a partner, he's an aggressor. So we have to remember that if we are talking about the dialogue, we need a partner. We don't have a partner. He's using his force. He's using his force to attack. It's not about Georgia in the past. It's not about Ukraine at the moment. It's not about that only. It's not about military force. It's also Nord Stream 2. And unfortunately, I must say, this is joint business with Germany. Germany, who are calling themselves leaders of the European Union. That is the problem. So to have a dialogue, you have to have a partner, not an aggressor.
Okay.
At the moment, he's aggressor in many ways.
I want to talk about the Nord Stream pipeline in a bit. But first of all, I mean, you really feel that this would be, engaging him would be kind of rewarding him for being an aggressor. But actually, I mean, nobody is saying that. Well, hold on. Nobody is saying, anything is going to necessarily change just by talking to him. They're not saying they're going to repeal sanctions. Nobody is throwing out those kinds of enticements. So it's just an effort. Isn't that better than nothing?
When you have a rapist, do you talk to him or do you sentence him? What is the solution? This is a rape on Georgia. We do have a rape on Ukraine, and we have many other rapes committed by Russia. Everyone knows that. International community is alarming about the using of violence against international community. And now we are trying to have a dialogue with the aggressor. It's the wrong way to deal with the problem. It's encouraging him. It's improving his position within Russian politics. It strengthens Putin because he feels absolutely free to do whatever. Because every single moment, 2008, 2010, 2021, he will be always invited to discuss and reset relationships. What kind of relationships? From Russian side, oppression, attacks, war, aggression again, and from our side, just a hand ready to shake his hand, to
Okay.
shake Kremlin's hand, to shake aggressor hand. So it's a wrong way of starting the relations. Absolutely encouraging Putin to continue his strategy. And again,
Okay.
this is the strategy of strength and aggression.
Let me ask Andrey, and Andrey in particular, what you make of that rapist analogy, that he can only be punished for what Dominik sees as crimes that he has committed. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
First of all, let me say that I really love this Polish
It's just a
passion.
fact. War is a crime.
It's
War-
very authentic.
Hold on, Dominik, let Andrey respond quickly.
I don't think that I will be let to speak here, but if we assume, seriously, if we assume that talking to Putin means rewarding Putin, it implies that the most generous politician in the world is Joe Biden, who spent a couple of hours with Mr. Putin in Geneva. I don't think that he really rewarded Putin for any deeds that Putin accomplished. However, Biden finds it important to interact with the country which has as many nuclear warheads as the United States does. So I think that by talking, you do not reward anyone.
Has different businesses than
You know,
European
will you
Union.
let me talk, or you don't want me to talk? If you don't want me to talk, I will shut down, and you can continue your
I'd like to
pathetic.
hear arguments.
Yeah, my take is that if we take the European Union, unfortunately, cannot agree on very many issues, not only on Russia. It cannot agree on the Kosovo independence, or it cannot agree on Venezuela. It cannot agree on Israel. That's why the European Union remains a weak international player compared to other major powers. I think it's regrettable. I think that the European Union deserves a strategic autonomy, which it doesn't have right now. But let me just tell you what will happen in Moscow after the decision made by the European Union. First, Putin will continue his strategic dialogue with the United States, assuming that the United States should impose its decisions on its Atlantic partners. Second, I think that Putin will definitely focus on bilateral relations with select members of the European Union, including Germany and France and Italy and some other countries which are more eager to talk to Moscow than the European Union at large. And then, of course, Putin will be accused of breaking the unity of the European Union and trying to use the wrinkles in the European integrity. And finally, of course, the decision of the European Union means that those people in Russia who believe that Russia should not care about Brussels at all and should rather focus on strengthening its partnership with China, these people will get the upper hand. So I can foresee even stronger partnership between Moscow and Beijing as a result of this position taken by the European Union.
Okay, Dominik, I'll let you
If I may,
respond
just
quickly,
one
please, and then I want to bring in Eleonora. Go ahead, Dominik.
So it means that we should accept Putin as he is, with all his actions, because he's going to be sad and he's going to go to China or US. I'm not so sad if he's going to go anywhere. It's unacceptable what he does, Litvinenko and others, what is happening in Belarus, what's happened with the Polish presidential plane crash in 2010 in Smolensk. The wreckage is still there, and he's not open to give it back. It's our wreckage, it's our plane, and many hundreds of cases. So what you're saying is accept him as he is, accept all his actions, because he's gonna be not happy, and he's gonna deal with US
Dominik,
or China. US and China is not a part of European Union.
Can I put forward to you, Dominik, that many would argue that engaging an adversary can change the course of history for the better, no matter how sour the relationship, no matter what the alleged crimes that have occurred in the past. When you do, for example, what Reagan and Gorbachev were able to do, it's a win-win in the end, even though many would have argued that Reagan should not have engaged Gorbachev the way he did. But eventually that helped bring an end to the Soviet Union as we know it, and Poland was freed as a result in large part. Why do you not see any value in engaging an adversary?
because I cannot see any sign of goodwill from Putin. The difference between Gorbachev and Putin is fundamental. The Gorbachev had a goodwill. He had the courage to make historical decisions. He had the courage to change the history. Putin wants to continue his strategy of strength and aggression. And that is the difference. It's not us who are not happy to discuss. It's not us who reject dialogue. We are open for the dialogue. But first of all, we have to see even a small sign of goodwill from Mr. Putin.
Okay. Eleonora, let me bring you into this discussion. I'm sorry for having you wait. So Putin is not Gorbachev. He does not, he's not touting glasnost. There's no openness there. Is that a fair argument to make? Is this genuinely someone that can't be spoken to, and that this could be seen in a sense as appeasement if he is brought into negotiations of any sort with the EU?
Putin is not Gorbachev indeed, and today's Russia is not the Soviet Union. So I don't think these comparisons hold true. And I think you have to engage even with the most bitter enemy you have. And this is not because the other person will automatically do what you ask them to, but this is because this is the way you solve problems, by talking even to your adversaries. So I think there is a general argument on backing the option of dialogue. But in the case of Merkel and Macron's proposals, I think two things must be underlined. First, we need to define the objectives of this proposal. And I think the main objective here is to strengthen the EU, not to change the EU policy on Russia. The proposal came after Joe Biden's meeting, and it comes out of a simple reflection. I mean, how and why nobody questioned Biden's decision to meet up with Putin, even though Putin was the same Putin that is today. So nothing really changed. No signs of goodwill then, no signs of goodwill now. But still, nobody argued against the decision of Biden. And I think the EU, if still wants to matter, needs to have its own dialogue channel with Putin. And second, we also need to think about what the EU wants to achieve with this dialogue, because as far as I remember, every EU-Russia summit would end with the same conclusion: we agree to disagree. So if the main goal is to lead Russia to do what we want, maybe this is not the best instrument. But if the goal is to strengthen the EU foreign policy at large, but I think this is necessary.
Hold on, Dominik. I just have to put that to Andrey very quickly. Andrey, is it about strengthening the EU, or is it helping to build the Nord Stream pipeline, which is what Dominik suspects is really behind Germany's efforts in particular?
Well, I think it's an attempt to avoid a damage to the integrity of the European Union. Because what is likely to happen now is that individual European leaders, for example, Emmanuel Macron, maybe Angela Merkel, maybe some other politicians, will try to reach out to Putin without consulting Brussels. So basically, since the European Union at large, as an institution, is not ready to do that, individual member states will try to do that, whether Brussels likes it or not. And definitely that will be detrimental to some extent to the integrity of the European Union. Again, I don't think that you should necessarily agree to everything that Putin does, but the odds are that Putin will be there for some time, and definitely we will have no other president for the European Union to deal with.
Okay, Dominik, go ahead.
First of all, Mr. Biden. Again, Mr. Biden and his administration and America itself, it's not the member of the European Union. We are talking about the community of the European Union and what we should do as a members of the European Union, as I understand. So that's Mr. Biden's decision. That's his strategy, and we'll see where this strategy will lead Mr. Biden and his administration. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Putin is a new, not a new politician. He's there for years. Remember, ex-KGB officer. And remember, we had resets in the past. We remember President Barack Obama when we had his conversation with Mr. Medvedev when he says, I will have a second term and more flexibility. We had all this reset for years. So our experience as a Polish experience is much more richer. It's just richer than last 5, 10 or 20 years. We've been invaded by Germans on 1st of September 1939 and we've been invaded by Russia 16 days later. Russia attacked Poland on 17th of September 1939 with Germany. We had 2 aggressors. So our experience is much more richer. And then we had the Katyn massacre. Over 25,000 Polish officers shot in the back of their head in the forest by Russians. 25,000 officers, massacre. So our experience throughout the ages, I would say, but leave that, throughout, I would say 70 years, it's still the same. Aggression in many forms. At the moment is economical and political force and aggression. So listen to Poland and our experience. Okay,
and the historical anger, as we can see, is still there. Eleonora, I saw you wanting to reply. Please go ahead.
So I don't...
let Eleonora go first, and then Andrey will come to you.
I don't understand how having direct talks equals reset exactly, because we're not talking about scrapping sanctions. We are not talking about giving visa liberalization to Russians, which, by the way, I would support. It's not talking about restarting the partnership for modernization. It's about talking to a leader that, you like him or not, is the leader of a country that you deal with, because we deal with Russia in many ways, in so many ways. Italy, for instance, imports over 50% of its gas from Russia. This is not going to change.
So it's all about money. It's all about money then.
No, not about money. It's about
values.
Talking with a partner which is not a partner in political terms, but it remains a partner in economic terms. And in order to have
that's why Germany is having this dialogue. We don't have this dialogue in the way Germany has it, because Germany proposed this dialogue and this meeting. And Germany obviously proposed this meeting because they are having the biggest deal with Russia, which is Nord Stream 2.
But Germany would be able to talk with Putin anyway. Germany is proposing to have a EU-wide dialogue, which is different. Merkel could go to Russia tomorrow to discuss with Putin, but she's proposing to have
and Poland and Baltic state use their rights to say no. We do have rights as a members, the same rights as Germany. Poland and the Baltic states and other, we do have rights, and we used our rights, and we said no. We don't want it. It's not good. We need a partner. We don't use force.
Does Poland fear at all, Dominik, from your perspective, that it is actually kind of compromising the unity of the EU, which has already really very much been tested over the last couple years? Is it really necessary to do that at this point?
Well, it's unnecessary to have 1 or 2 countries making a business out of 27. Remember, European Union is 27 member states. 27. Germany is making the money on Nord Stream 2. France is making the money on Mistral's warships. These 2 are having the biggest businesses with Russia. What about the rest? Who is working on this integration of European Union? 25 rest of us, or just two, Germany and France, making a business with Putin. Who is responsible then? Majority or minority of 2?
Okay, I want to bring Andrey back into the conversation, because Andrey, you had said something interesting previous to this program.
Just to put the record straight with Dominik, there were not 25 countries that opposed a meeting with Putin. There were about 10 countries, most of them from the Baltic and Central Europe. Again, it's just a matter of clarification.
Okay.
But speaking of relations between Russia and Europe, and this is really important, I think it would be wrong to say that it is just about some lucrative economic deals. It's not about that. Russia is a part of Europe, and Russia has a lot of cultural, humanitarian, social, and other bonds with other European nations, including Poland, by the way. If you look at the Schengen visas, Russia gets more Schengen visas than any other country in the world. That should not be forgotten. Unfortunately, in this relationship, very little can be accomplished on the bottom-up approach. Many things can be decided only on the top-down approach. That's why summit meetings are important. But summit meetings are not indispensable. I think that the relationship will continue without a summit meeting, but I still insist that it would be better to talk than not to talk. Putin is a tough negotiator. You know,
what I feel, if I may, what I feel is that Madame Merkel and Mr. Macron, they want more and they desire more discussion than Mr. Putin himself. It looks like they are trying to engage the discussion, dialogue, meeting, and all this. Seems like Mr. Putin doesn't care. And that is the difference of the attitude. And that is the difference between our experience, historical, the long distance, like long perspective, and the recent years, recent 2 or 3 decades, and experience with Mr. Putin, and our experience for recent days or weeks. We have cyber attacks. We know that they came from Russia, probably from Russia. Then we have the situation in Belarus, which is absolutely unacceptable, and many other cases. So,
but Dominik,
that's
please,
the difference between
do
our
not,
personal experience.
Go ahead, Andrey.
I think that it would be wrong to take such a condescending approach to Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel. I think that they are trying to work for the European Union at large. You might disagree with how they are trying to do that, but definitely they can choose another option. They can talk to Putin in their individual capacity. I think that it was, in a way, it was a very generous act on the part of Angela Merkel, who preferred to put this issue on the agenda of the European Union rather to talk to Mr. Putin behind closed doors. Unfortunately, this gesture was not properly appreciated by politicians in Poland and in some other countries. I think that she does not deserve such an attitude.
Eleonora, go ahead.
Exactly. I think this is more about strategic autonomy than it is about the EU-Russia relations in particular. And this is something like pursuing strategic autonomy that is not seen positively in many Eastern European countries. So this is about being more independent,
Germany
more
made decision about Nord Stream 2, they never asked us about our opinion.
Right.
They had their own businesses. The Germany and Russia, they had the dialogue about Nord Stream 2. They make decision. That's it. They didn't care about our
I know,
safety.
Dominik, you obviously think that the motivations are money here.
This is important. One sentence. This is important. Just one sentence. The money which Putin will make on Nord Stream 2 will go to his army, and his army will go to Georgia, Ukraine, Baltic states, and later maybe to Poland and others. Then you will wake up.
Go ahead, Eleonora, quickly.
I don't agree with most of Putin's external actions and decisions. But when we talk about strengthening the EU, I think Poland should not really have a say. Poland opposes strategic autonomy. Poland is the most autocratizing country, according to
No, don't say that, because I don't want to say anything about Italy or others.
Democracy. It doesn't count as a full democracy according to Freedom House. I mean, if we're talking about the European democracy,
come to Warsaw. We don't have suicide attacks. We don't have rapes by illegal migrants. We don't have all these criminal problems which you have. And you are trying to tell us about democracy. Look at the streets. We don't have burning cars. We don't have rapes. So don't tell me about Poland, because I'm in Poland now.
Dominik, it's almost like Moscow. You are referring to Moscow, to Warsaw. We don't have these illegal migrants either. And in this way, we're
I never said you did. I never said you did.
Yeah. So that's why, we're in the same league, if you want.
But this is ridiculous.
I never said anything about. I never said anything about democracy in Russia. I never said anything.
Yeah,
what I've said about Russia is our. I never said about any reports. What I've said about Russia is very simple. our experience. What I'm saying.
Okay,
are
Dominik,
the facts.
I know you repeated you have this
Litvinenko,
historical
another
legacy
agent's
with Moscow that deeply disturbs
No, it's
the
not
Poles.
about. It's not about. It's about recent history.
Right, recent, and you even dated it back to the invasion of the Soviet Union,
Which is
way
important.
back when. I understand.
Which is important.
But I think most
see the
disturbingly in
bigger
this
picture.
last 2 minutes, we've seen how deep the divide runs between the differences of many European countries, and Poland's vote is just as heavy as France and Germany. Eleonora, unfortunately for some of the other European members. But listen, we're going to have to wrap it up. We're actually over time. Thank you so much to all three of my panelists for your insights today. Really fascinating discussion, and thanks, of course, to our viewers for tuning in as well. We'll see you next time.